Hello, welcome back to another episode of Soft Faith. Last week we discussed what is fasting and kind of gave some context of what Lent is and why do Catholics celebrate Lent. But this week we're going to be discussing more of what really is Lent and getting into more detail about that. And then throughout the Lenten season we'll touch on separate topics related to Lent. So that is for y'all. That's the plan for our Lenten season. So let's get into it. So, like I stated last week, Lent is a period of preparation and renewal. It's basically the season before Easter for the most part. A big idea you can kind of picture in your heads is that Lent is about making space for God. The 40 days represent the time Jesus spent in the desert, along with the 40 years that the Israelites spent also in the desert, and the 40 days of the flooding as well. Now, what I've noticed is common across these scenarios is that not just the number 40 itself, but that these 40 years or days were symbolic of a period of spiritual reset and renewal. And I think that's so important, and it gives so much context for what really is Lent and why it is what it is. So, Lent has three different pillars, or three different aspects, if you will. We have prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And you cannot almost celebrate Lent without doing all three of these things at once. So let's start with prayer. And I've talked a lot about prayer on this podcast and how important it is and how it's like our connection with God. But it's very important during Lent. It's, like I said, a way of reconnecting with God, and it's the core of the whole idea of building a relationship aspect in Lent. Prayer can detach you from all of the noise that you are connected to every day. Kind of like people who seek validation, people who find comfort in productivity and distractions and whatnot. All of that personal, I guess, noise. Prayer can really give you a break from all that. And also, prayer can, not only is it just talking to God and whatnot, but it can also look like 10 minutes of silence throughout your day, or reading a gospel chapter a day, praying the Psalms, even journaling, I would consider as like a form of prayer. And when I mean prayer, I don't mean like you have to like always say like the Our Father or whatever pre-verse prayer. It can literally, it's just it's a way to talk to God. It's like talking to anybody on the phone. It's the same thing. You like talk to God, tell him how you really feel about things, what you're thankful about and what he can help you with. Same thing like journaling. If you journal your thoughts, it's not like anything formal. It's just like a more private, intimate, personal connection with God. So that's prayer for you. And then also fasting. We kind of discussed this, well, we did discuss this last week, but as like a little reiteration, it's about control rather than just like the idea of giving up food. And we kind of talked about how um, if fasting isn't just a diet plan, if anything, it's a lot more than that. And it exposes what we run to for comfort, what we depend on, and what we even like panic about that we're missing. Along with that, it if giving something up makes you irritable, anxious, or dramatic, or stressful in a way, that thing proves that it had more power over you than you thought. And that's kind of what fasting does to you, is that you realize like, oh, like how much I've depended on something, whether it be food or like social media even, those kind of things that you give up. If you find that you are kind of like having like a withdrawal from something, like it like shows that, it like reflects that in fasting. And the last pillar that we'll talk about is almsgiving. Now, this is one that people may overlook the most because I don't know, but I tend to notice that this is something that even myself I tend to overlook a lot. But almsgiving isn't just about money. It can be like the whole idea of it is it's about detaching you from any greed that's built in, whether it be subtle or not. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to involve giving money. It can be just time, attention, forgiveness, service, and whatnot, etc. And the hardest almsgiving is giving patience to someone who drains you or offering a hand to someone you think doesn't deserve it. And I think this is very important in uh during the Lenten season because this kind of reflects what we Christians do, if that makes sense. Um Here's like a little way of thinking about all three of those pillars together. Prayer works on your relationship with God. Fasting is your relationship with yourself, and almsgiving is working on your relationship with those around you. And like I said, combining all three of these allows for that transformation that Lent is establishing. So that is the bulk of what I wanted to talk about today. And like I said, in the future weeks, we'll be discussing more specific themes about Lent because there's just so much about Lent that you cannot fit in one episode. But this is kind of like an intro to Lent and like what the idea of Lent is and what not. So, some questions I want you to reflect on going into this week, into this first week of Lent, is things that I think are a great start to mapping out how you want to go about with your Lent. So, think about things that control you. It could be like it could be social media, it could be school, even, it could be whatever food of some sort, your comfort snack. Oh my goodness, comfort food. Ugh, I love ice cream is my comfort food. I don't know why, but it just is. But like I said, think of what controls you and consider possibly limiting yourself access to that or um, giving it up entirely if you could. Also, a big question that tends to pop up during Lent for me is where is my attention going? Like, is it focusing on God or is there something else that's occupying my mind? Another big thought I've also come across while writing these notes is that notice the people around you. And what I mean by that is like, how does your spiritual life impact them? And this kind of can like uh dip into the whole almsgiving part where I talked about how the almsgiving part of Lent works on your relationship with others. So what I want to say is be mindful of the people around you and how does becoming more Christ-like and becoming a better Christian for yourself impact others as well around you. And you can also, I want to say watch, but also like kind of like take note of how people are acting around you during this Lent season. You know, some things you can ask yourself is like, do the people closest to me feel more peace because of me? Uh, do I apologize better to other people than I used to? Questions like those. Also, I think a really big thought that always comes up in my head, not just like during Lent, but like whenever, is if the only version of Christianity someone experienced was me, what would they think God is like? And I think that like brings so much clarity to me about like knowing how I'm acting and how I'm representing my faith and my God is when somebody who has zero clue of what Christianity is like, how would they think God works and how not God works, but how does Christianity really like why is it good? You know what I mean? So it's something I want to try to work on more this Lent season, is having that in the back of my head, like if I was like the only representation of Christianity to somebody, how am I representing my faith? So I think that touches on all the notes I wanted to go through today. So that'll conclude it, and I hope you guys have a lovely Lent, I guess. I was gonna say happy Lent, but I don't know if that's what you would say. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great week, a great start to Lent, and I'm so excited for this new season, this new year of Lent. And yeah, have a good one, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.